Frankenstein created woman in one of Hammer's most memorable films. Hammer is renowned not only for its Gothic horrors, but for the beautiful women that starred in them. This is the story of how Hammer horror went hand in hand with Hammer Glamour.
Oh, who is she? A misty memory.
I was probably typecast by looking attractive, and I'm sure, of course, nowadays that wouldn't count at all, but then one was fortunate enough to look pretty or whatever, and I'm sure it helped get me a lot of roles.
And depending on the films that you do, and if it kind of works out all right, then you get more of the same, and for me, it tended to be a lot of horror.
It was definitely typecast, and I had even further because I was exotic. So not only was I the Hammer horror girl, but I was also an exotic.
I played the sort of the victim, somebody that would have it done to, but at the same time, unaware of the fact that my tits were hanging out.
Oh, Maggie.
And that's really the end of my essay.
Sex appeal was part of the Hammer formula long before the company started making horror films. One of the highlights of the 1952 thriller, The Last Page, is peroxide bombshell Diana Dawes. A fun-loving beauty with an unhealthy addiction to fast-living and lawless young men, Diana was already on the way to becoming Britain's most beloved sex symbol. Even racier was American star Barbara Payton, who appeared in several films for Hammer, including 1953's Four-Sided Triangle. When Hammer started making horror films in the mid-1950s, their first pin-up girl was Vera Day.
When I was in my early 20s, I was dubbed Pocket Venus, and that was because I was small but curvy. I was 36, 22, 34, but only 5'2". When I was about 17, I remember standing on Bow Road Station, waiting for a train to take me into London, where I had a job, some sort of office job, nothing very fancy, but something normal like that. And I was approached by a very famous photographer called Zoltan Glass, who asked me to model for him. And I was earning far more in one day than I was earning in a week for the other things I was doing. So I stopped my normal job and became a model. I had a boyfriend. He heard about these auditions for a show called Wish You Were Here, where they wanted bathing beauties and hunky men. And he said, I've got a good idea, Vera, why don't you go and audition for the show? Anyway, it came to the end of it, and I did my little bit, dancing and singing. And they said, yeah, OK, all right. Yeah, all right, Vera, you're in, don't worry about it, you are in. On the first night, the film director, a very famous film director of the time, Val Guest, came to see the show. And he was quite impressed with me, and he came around, left a note at the stage door, or his card, rather. And then Val Guest wrote me a part in a film called Dance of the Lady. Then I did Crowded Day, Kid for Two Farthings, and then my fourth film was Quatermass 2.
Is that promotion supposed to be a cheat? It looks more like an elephant's combat. Here, hold this. Now watch him.
Everybody in that film had a mark on their face due to this meteorite that blew up. I thought, no, I don't have a very big part, and I'm not going to have... And it was hideous. I mean, if you look at the actors, they've got this hideous thing on their face. And being the vain little person that I was, I said, no, please, I don't really... Can I have it on the chest? Val Guest, being the lovely Val Guest, was more than happy for me to sit there doing this. I'd watched it the other day and I thought, how stupid could one be to go over and say, oh, oh, look at that. I must just pick this up, you know, after everyone saying, don't touch it. Oh, it's all right. I'd only been in the business for about a year, and there I was at the London Pavilion with this giant picture of me. I'll never forget my dad going up to see it, you know, from the East End of London, and he was so knocked out. He was just standing there looking at it, saying, that's my daughter up there, you know. I remember a film called Clean Sweep that was a Hammer production. It was just a very small little comedy film about gambling, really. I would never have thought Hammer would have done a film like that, but they did. It was sweet, actually.
Mum, look, it's only Tuesday and that's 3 days to payday. And I was coming home past Madame Lily's Superior Costumiers and Second-Hand Models Limited, and I saw it in the window. It's just what I need. But I've got to put something down straight away, you see, Mum, and it's only Tuesday and that's...
And it's 3 days to payday, I know.
Yes, and...
Well, how much do you want?
Oh, anything, Mum, anything.
And how much have you got left from last payday?
Well, about...
Yes?
Well, I've just got the bus fare till the end of the week.
I did 2 more films for Hammer. One was Up the Creek, and the other one was Watch It Sailor. I'd just appeared in a television play, Armchair Theatre, and it was a play that was directed by Gerald Glaister, and again, it was written by Val Guest for his wife, Yolande Donlan, and it was called The Red-Headed Blonde. And I did it, and I got rave notices. I can't believe the notices I got. And the next morning, I was doing the film Up the Creek. And I sat on the train, and I was reading these notices saying, oh, Vera Day's no longer a bikini girl, she's proved herself, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, oh, God. And here I am again, going up to Elstree to play the part of a barmaid, you know, but I was doing a little dizzy barmaid, and I was almost tearful. I was thinking, what am I doing? But what was I doing? I was paying the rent for my flat.
Tuesday, dear. Wednesday's eggs.
Wednesday's eggs?
Yes, it used to be Tuesday, but it clashed with the Barclay Bakeries.
The what?
Auntie Barclay's goodies.
Auntie Barclay's eggs? They deliver eggs?
Yeah, from the Barclay hatcheries.
Eggs from chickens?
I believe that's the usual process.
Films started to get a little bit few and far between because for my type of roles, it became very fashionable to have an Italian or French girl. And then I was offered a part in Saturday night and Sunday morning, and it was for the part, the script said a sluttish, blah, 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 sluttish housewife, blah, blah, and stupidly, again, vanity was coming up, you know. I thought, I'm not playing a sluttish... And I turned it down, and Rachel Roberts took the part, played the part, and there's all kitchen sink dramas then, and I wasn't kitchen sink drama type, and anyway, the films were coming a little bit sparse. I've said goodbye to it all until a little while ago, when Guy Ritchie just took me on to play the part of Tanya in Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, and that was wonderful. And then I found I was suddenly reinvented and have been doing lots of touring around at memorabilia events and things like that, which I'm more than happy to do.
Hammer's first colour horror film, The Curse of Frankenstein, co-starred Hazel Court as the evil Baron's fiancée. Rather less virtuous was his scheming maid, played by Valerie Gaunt. The second and final film in Valerie's brief screen career was Dracula, released the following year in 1958. Here she was unforgettable as the Count's feral bride.
Nothing's wrong.
Barbara Shelley, Hammer's most prolific leading lady, underwent a similarly startling transformation in Dracula, Prince of Darkness, released in 1966.
You don't need Charles.
For the role of H. Rider Haggard's She, Hammer cast the original Bond girl, Ursula Andress. When the film was released in 1965, the publicity boasted that she was the world's most beautiful woman. Hammer's 100th film was also its most commercially successful. 1 million years BC was released in 1966, and its marketing campaign was enough to make American actress Raquel Welch an international icon. Raquel's co-star in the film was Martine Beswick.
In Million with Raquel, I actually felt a bit sorry for her because she was sort of a victim of Hollywood in a way. But at the same time, we were not best friends. And in fact, she was quite difficult. She was owned by the studios. And so she was farmed out, and she was not happy about it, and especially not happy about doing this film. Before Hammer, before James Bond, I was a model. And actually, a lot of us were models. But I always wanted to be an actress, so for me, it was just the stepping stone, as it was in those days, to be an actress. Then I did Bond, and that was in '62 was the first one, which was From Russia with Love. And then again, in '65, when I did Thunderball, and that was a time when Hammer decided that I was the one to be brought on board for 1 million years BC. I had seen John Richardson in photographs, and I had freaked out because I had this feeling that we were like destined to be together. And I didn't want it. And I tried to get out of it because I found out that he was the star. I literally tried to back out, and they threatened to sue me. However, so in that case, I had to do it. And when I arrived to do it, it happened. So for me, it was the beginning not just of Hammer, but it was the beginning of a major love affair, like the big love affair of my life. So I'm on 1 million years BC. I've now become bestest friends with Michael and his wife, Josephine. And literally, I think it's on the second night, he's sort of sitting there in that, with that unbelievable sort of like mischief smirk on his face. And he said, "Martine, I want you to be my queen." I went, "Oh, okay, darling. Really? What am I going to do?" He said, "Well, I've got this film, and it's called Prehistoric Women, and I want you to be the queen." And I said, "I tell you what, if I'm going to be your queen, I want makeup, and I want a whole new outfit of leather bits, and I need to look gorgeous. I'm not going to look like a pig woman like I did in this one, okay?" And he said, "Done." I said, "Okay, we're on." And that was it. That was it.
Your clothes are different. You are different. Can you speak our tongue?
Yes.
Where do you come from?
One of the great movies. One of the great movies ever made, because it has to be one of the worst. It's nonsense, absolute nonsense. However, I had a ball doing it. And it's interesting because there are a lot of people who love this film. Of course they love it because it's just the campest, most ridiculous film. And all these, you know, girls in their little bikinis and things, and me bitch moding. I was described as a terrific bitch kitty actress.
You refuse me?
What else can you expect? Your heartless cruelty is sickening.
Prehistoric Women is a kinky film? I think not. I think it's quite tame, actually. It's kinky? Whoever said Prehistoric Women is kinky? I mean, where did that come from? Why is it kinky? Why, because I beat up people? Actually, here's the kinkiness of it, which actually was never sort of mentioned, was that little blonde things were given to the demons in the forest, who were all these black guys with big hoods on, things on. So that might have been a bit, well, it's a bit horrid, really. Never mind kinky, it was just horrid.
This was a land where druid priests held sway over people's minds and prophesied that one day a woman would wear armor and wield a sword against the Romans. A woman who would be called the Viking Queen.
The Viking Queen was produced in 1966 and was a misguided attempt by Hammer to present another pseudo-historical adventure in the style of She and 1 million years BC. There was compensation in the shape of Finnish model Karita Järvinen.
She's to be taken to Rome to stand public trial.
To stand trial. To be sent to Rome as a slave.
Also filmed in the summer of 1966, Frankenstein Created Woman featured the Polish-born Susan Denberg. Susan's career would peak with this, her only Hammer film. And by the end of the decade, mental health problems had led to her retirement. In the late 1960s, Hammer decided to promote an English actress as their new star discovery. Veronica Carlson appeared in 3 films for the company, culminating in 1970's The Horror of Frankenstein. The Horror of Frankenstein was one of the films that depicted the more liberal attitudes of the so-called permissive society.
What about you, Maddie?
I didn't swing. I was in it. I was in the middle of it, but I refused to swing.
I was very naive.
I could go into detail, but I better not.
It all passed me by. It passed me by. Even my daughter now says, Mum, we were living in the 60s.
Yeah. Yes. What happened?
I don't know. I was in another world, I think.
Oh, I love
that. It really did pass me by.
We were very good girls, because I knew Caroline at the time.
We did.
We were very good.
Oh. Notice how quiet I am.
Yes, she was less good.
You are the handsomest man on the boat, and I'm the loveliest girl. We have no past, just men.
The vivacious Susanna Lee came to Hammer following a starring role opposite Elvis Presley in Paradise Hawaiian style. Her journey to the lost continent in 1968 proved rather less idyllic. Susanna's other work for Hammer included Lust for a Vampire 2 years later. Susanna's co-star was aspiring Danish actress Jutta Stensgaard. When Ursula Andress declined to appear in the 1968 film The Vengeance of She, the lead role was taken by Playboy cover star Olinka Berova. The Czechoslovakian actress later married Hollywood studio head John Calley. Scars of Dracula was one of Hammer's first films of the 1970s. Its young cast included Jenny Hanley.
I'd done a film where, sticking to my rules, I refused to take my clothes off, and the director had us all on location and was renowned for saying, well, we have this extra scene written in, let's just do this and get it done with quickly. And of course, one of the girls would have to divest themselves of something, if not everything. And Peter Walker is his name, who used to try to do this with everybody, and I refused. And he said, well, it's going to be in silhouette, so it doesn't matter. Your character will come into shot and then go out of shot and take the bra off and put it on the back of the chair that's in shot, and then take the pants off and put them on the chair that's in shot, and then the silhouette will leave. So I thought, okay, I'll do that. But I wore 2 bras and 2 pairs of pants. And he was livid, absolutely livid. So what happened was that he put another girl in who took her bra off in shot and her pants off in shot and dubbed that in, or cut that in. And I said to my agent, I don't like that, because a film buff had said, you know, didn't think you did that, or a friend had said that as well. So we went to Equity, who took Pete Walker to court, or was going to, for defamation of character, because she had black pubes and I was a natural blonde. And I had to have my doctor and my hairdresser standing by, ready to go into court.
You must be exhausted.
No, Simon, no. This is the first real clue we've had. We'll follow it together. I'm not leaving you.
Not forever, I hope.
I was a happy little sort of 15-year-old, 16-year-old, with braces on my teeth and glasses on the end of my nose, and very shy. And Mother overheard somebody saying what a shame it was that such a beautiful woman had such a plain, unfortunate daughter. At which point, all maternal hammers came out, and she sent me to a modelling school and paid for me to take a modelling course. I did a cinema commercial for a sort of ice cream that came in a plastic cone. And somebody for Harry Saltzman, who was part of the team that had brought the Bond films to life, saw me in this commercial and decided that I ought to be an actress and I ought to be part of Harry Saltzman's. Well, he was putting together a sort of stable, like the original Rank Starlets. My problem with filming was that this was the late 60s, early 70s, and as I say, if I didn't deem it necessary to take my clothes off, I wouldn't. And Harry Saltzman asked me to do Battle of Britain, and the part included a nude scene, and I had the gall to say to him, I'm sorry, I'm not doing it. So he said, well, you better go and do a Hammer film then, because they want you. And I was let out to do that.
It's a lovely party, Sarah.
Hope you're enjoying it as much as we are.
Oh, I'm thirsty, I'm thirsty.
Well, are you?
Huh? Am I what?
Enjoying your party?
Oh, yes, yes.
Scars of Dracula turned out to be a joy. My character was a rather fey, innocent, sweet girl, boring as hell, bless her. But she wafted her way through the whole thing and fainted on cue and got her chest ripped at the right time and won through to the end. Even though Dennis Waterman and I didn't get on because he hated apparently tall, blonde, posh bints, we became friends during the filming.
You shall sleep here. I must apologize for the inconvenience, but since the fire...
Fire? Sarah.
I'm afraid Christopher Lee takes everything very seriously. And when there were some giggles, like me, I'm a bit of a giggler. The bat near the end coming in to grab the cross from around my neck obviously comes in, hits your chest and bounces off backwards. Now, that's amusing. I'm sorry, Christopher, that is funny. But Christopher actually takes it very seriously indeed and says, you know, you do realise this is a true person, Vlad the Impaler, and gave us all lectures and things. But you know, generally, we kept him off the set when giggles were apt to happen. Most Hammer ladies, as I think everybody knows, are blessed with a frontage, a big, ample frontage. I wasn't. Consequently, they made my nightdress, which of course is also part of the rules that you have to be in a nightdress, it seems, for half the film. They made my nightdress like the Firth of Forth Bridge. And I had to sort of perch upon it in a genteel manner and pray that I didn't get hiccups or anything, because that would have been a disaster. And running was interesting too. There was a scene where they actually had the nightdress on the bed as Sarah, my character, came in to Dracula's castle. And I remember the props man actually sort of pressing down the front of the nightdress so it didn't actually look as though it should be breathing. If I could go back in time and offer myself a piece of advice, back to 69, say, I would not say, rip your knickers off, although I might have got a better career. I don't know that I'd give myself any advice, because half of the mistakes you make, I think, make you what you become. And it was a fun time, and I had my Porsche convertible. Who could want more?
Polish actress Ingrid Pitt only appeared in 3 productions for Hammer. But the first, 1970's The Vampire Lovers, sealed her reputation as one of the genre's best-loved leading ladies. Her co-star in that film was Madeline Smith.
Ingrid always was, on film and in life, was larger than life. Ingrid was an unafraid lady, unafraid to be herself. She was proud of her body, proud of being a woman, loved her man, loved her daughter. She was earthy, she was super, she was frightening, she was loving, she was beautiful. And that was Ingrid. Maddie, the pretend prostitute, didn't know she was being a prostitute and didn't actually know until recently that Dolly, which is the part I played in Taste the Blood of Dracula, was a prostitute, and indeed why I was riding on Geoffrey Keen's back. I had no idea. I didn't know anything. I'd spent 7 years in a convent in Ealing. So in 1969, when I was discovered, I didn't know what I was doing. I was as skinny as could be, and nothing very much was happening up here, which is why a few months later I received a call from Michael Stiles, who was about to produce Vampire Lovers, very worried, did I have the assets? And then, of course, comes the famous yoghurt story, where I spent Christmas and New Year slurping down the yoghurts, and bingo, suddenly they appeared. I wish that I hadn't had to take my clothes off in The Vampire Lovers. I do regret that. And when I agreed to do joyfully agreed to do The Vampire Lovers, that wasn't part of the contract. I was told that it was only for the Japanese version. And of course, it wasn't only for the Japanese version. That's the version that everybody has seen. And of course, with the relaxing of the censor over the years, more and more and more has been shown. And with the way things have gone, people freeze frame, they stop frame, they take photographs, and those photographs are now for all to see. It was my ignorance and my innocence and my willingness to please, and also based on fear, because I didn't really know what they were on about, quite frankly. And the orgasm scene, of course, I didn't know what Michael Stiles meant by orgasm. I didn't know what he meant by, you know, hotting it up or whatever. And I knew that Roy Ward Baker was very upset by the whole thing, frog-marched these producers out, and was wonderful to me. I mean, he coaxed, I think, a halfway decent performance out of me. It was a good enough film, and it would have stood up without. And sometimes it gets the wrong kind of audience and the wrong kind of fan. I'm sometimes asked to sign photographs for the wrong people, if you see what I mean. I think people do consider me to be a bit of a vulgarian, which I'm not. I'm actually quite a modest, rather shy, rather inward-looking person in real life, and I would have liked to have had more and better parts. And I think the fact that word got out that I took my clothes off, it didn't help.
Playboy's first twin playmates, Mary and Madeline Collinson, were born in Malta. In 1971, they came to Pinewood Studios to star in Hammer's Twins of Evil. Earlier in 1971, Martine Beswick returned to Hammer for a starring role in Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde. It would prove to be one of the company's best films of the decade.
How is your brother?
Brother?
Dr. Jekyll?
Oh, he hasn't been himself of late.
I'd gone to America and I was still there doing all sorts of stuff. And I'd come over for a little visit to see all the pals. And I went in to see my old agents. And we went in and said, hello, how are you? And they went, oh my God, Martine, Hammer's looking for someone, it's you. And I went, what? What? And they said, well, they're going to do a film called Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde. And I went, oh, don't be silly. What do you mean? He's going to turn into her? He said, yeah, they're doing it. There was a whole bunch of people, and I walked in and I was like ready to start, and there was that Michael Carrera's sort of like mischievous grin on his face. And I said, Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, eh? And he said, yes. And we just had this like, and we didn't say any more. But I said, well, it sounds kind of interesting. Sounds kind of interesting, and that was it. I mean, I did have a laugh at first. And I thought, this could be very interesting because each person has male and female in us. And I thought we could kind of explore that a little bit. So we attempted to do that when we finally started shooting. But Hammer was under pressure right at that point to take off clothes. Hammer was under pressure to be naked. And so there was a lot of that going on, and it wasn't necessary. I mean, the script that I had did not have full frontal nudity, which is what they were trying to make me do. And I said, look, I understand that one has to be nude because if there's a change, because she's going to discover, I understand that. I said, but I'm not taking off all my clothes in front of the camera. Sorry, no. And that caused a bit of a furor. The film was directed by Roy Ward Baker, and it was written by Brian Clements. And actually, many, many years later, Roy and Brian and I were doing one of those, you know, accompanying DVD things. And he said, Roy said, you know, we should have explored the male-female thing more. And I went, I know.
From 1969 to 1975, the statuesque Valerie Leon was known as a whip-cracking dominatrix in the television commercials for high karate aftershave. In late 1970, Hammer chairman Sir James Carreras gave her a leading role in Blood from the Mummy's Tomb.
Sir James Carreras, I think I met at a variety club event. I can't really tell you too much because I didn't get that close to him. I mean, he obviously, you know, thought I had something because I believe he really wanted me to have the part, but I never knew that at the time. I had no idea at all.
I get a feeling of great loneliness, of her dreaming alone, dreaming of things far different from those around her, a land far away in miles and years, yet close to her heart.
Blood from the Mummy's Tomb was a completely jinxed movie. My first day shooting was with Peter Cushing, where he gives me the ring that belonged to Tara, the evil queen, and of course I'm reincarnated as Margaret. But at the end of that day's first shoot, he heard his beloved wife, Helen, was terribly ill, so he left the picture. The next thing we heard was the lovely director, Seth Holt, who had hiccups for a week, and we used to sit through rushes and he'd go, and we'd used to think he's hiccuping away, and we'd think it was funny. And then I heard that after a dinner party with his wife, the guests had just left, and he turned to her suddenly and he said, "I'm going." And he just died of a heart attack. And I was devastated. I was devastated because I'd worked with him previously, and as I said, I never knew I would be his leading lady one day. But, you know, they wouldn't let me go to the funeral. Hammer Films were on such a tight budget. I had two body doubles. First of all, I was playing two parts. I was playing, you know, the evil Queen Tara, who was reincarnated as the young girl, who then becomes the evil queen. But first of all, there was one nude scene. It was very little. It was just getting out of bed very quickly, and it was only a back shot. So I had one body double for that. And the other one, I guess because I featured, you know, quite a lot in the movie, that I needed to stand in and a body double. You know, that was a time of my life when I was actually incredibly shy. I mean, when I eventually did the movie, you know how everybody congregates in the bar at lunchtime and meets up and you have drinks and have fun and laughter. I used to take sandwiches every day to the studio, and at lunchtime I would hole up in my dressing room, eating my sandwiches, looking at the lines for the afternoon. I was very withdrawn in those days. I mean, people might have thought I was stuck up, but actually, because I was tall and sort of a bit aloof, but really it hid enormous shyness. I have seen pictures of myself at that premiere of Blood from the Mummies Tomb at the National Film Theatre, and now when I look at those pictures, I think, what was I wearing? It was quite awful. Having been associated with 3 major British film series, I was lucky, and I guess the first one was the Carry-Ons. And then, of course, the Bond movies all have become cults, and it's lucky. And thanks to the internet, one gets letters from all over the world. In fact, on the Hammer film, I remember getting a letter from somebody on death row who wrote to me asking to have a picture from the movie because he said it would help ease his journey into the next life. Spooky.
By the mid-1970s, Hammer Glamour was coming to an end. A victim of demystifying overexposure. The company's final horror films from this era did, however, include some of its most beautiful leading ladies. Norwegian model, actress, and sex symbol Julie Edge was Hammer's most heavily promoted glamour girl of the decade. In 1971, she appeared in the company's final prehistoric adventure, Creatures the World Forgot. 3 years later, she returned for the bizarre kung fu epic, The Legend of the 7 Golden Vampires. English model and actress Caroline Munro graced Dracula AD 1972 and Captain Kronos Vampire Hunter, 2 of Hammer's most distinctive horrors.
You were shot beautifully. You had wonderful cameramen, generally lovely clothes. So you had everything to help your hairdressers. And so it was the age of sort of glamour. So you felt the part. I had done a poster in the 70s called Lamb's Navy Rum. Interestingly enough, I was not aware that the poster was used on the buses. Sir James Carreras used to travel up and down on the train from Brighton to Waterloo, And he'd seen one of these posters, and supposedly he liked the image, and he said, find that lady and bring her into my office. My first film for Hammer was Dracula AD 72, and I felt very much not thrown in at the deep end, but it was kind of a turning point for me insofar as an actress, because I got to work with all these really experienced stage actors and drama school actors. It was a really good experience, and one that enabled me to think that this was now what I truly wanted to do. You know, forget the modelling, moving on from the modelling, I'd found my passion. My second film for Hammer was a beautifully crafted film by my lovely friend Brian Clements. At the time, it wasn't recognised, his work, his beautiful work, and at the time, I don't know if people got it. Now, I think Brian, obviously, it was his baby, and he totally understood what he was doing. And I think it made for something really special. Of course, then his other lovely one was Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, with my lovely Martine, who was very naughty in that film. What a naughty girl. I was up for the part. Actually, I was up for the part, but I would not have been right for it. Not naughty enough.
In Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell, I really got to act. I think it was the best part I ever played in the whole of my career. For me, I was very proud and very relieved that Hammer thought I was a sufficiently good actress to wear a dress up to here, which showed absolutely nothing round here and went down to the ankles. I was very proud of that. I mean, I looked terrible, frumpy, hair scraped back, no makeup, awful. But I was required to actually act, and that was fantastic. Do I feel the need to look glamorous? I'm vain enough to want not to look like hell in my daily life, and I take that into every aspect of my life.
As you get older, being or trying to get or appear glamorous is more of a chore in a way. I always put on makeup, always bits of makeup when I go out.
Having created an image to look glamorous when I was young, I still feel an obligation when attending fan conventions to try and look as good as I can.
People say to me, oh, but don't you just go without makeup? I said, no, I do not. Yes, I do when I'm at home, but I don't. I go out every day and I put on some makeup. Obviously, I don't dress up, you know, just to go to the store. But I certainly do not go out there looking like a schlep.
It's not that I want to be glamorous, because I don't think I ever was terribly glamorous. I think I was blessed with good genes, and I'm a happy person who enjoys life, and I try to look reasonable, mainly because it might frighten the horses.
My image was glamour, and so one tries to maintain it as long as possible, I suppose.